Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we can be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So, like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate you. Another edition of the Pick and Downs podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with my man P. Bush. How you doing?
Doing well, man. Missing Zoo tonight. To my understanding, his girl got last-minute tickets to a show she'd always been wanting to see. She got lucky, and surprising. It takes a lot to take Zoo away from a fantasy football discussion, especially the first one of the year here in July. But he's sorely missed, and he'll be back in for the running backs discussion for sure. That's his bread and butter. And today we're gonna talk about the QBs. It's going to be pretty interesting. I've been really in fantasy for probably around a month now, a little bit earlier than you guys. I've been chatting you guys up about it, and it's post July 4th, Sean. So I hope you've at least taken a quick look on your side too.
Yeah, man. Haven't hit the 14-team league yet because I feel like I need to be completely locked in just of how that draft usually goes. But I did a 10-man league and a 12-man league. Just did one. So I've kind of eased myself back into the fantasy streets a little bit, but definitely going to be kicking into high gear at least this week.
If you started with the 14 team, I think you might have crashed out way too early.
Yeah.
You know how I did a couple mock drafts at 14 because my work league is 14, and man, I just keep getting pissed at how far I got to go down towards the end of that draft.
And it throws me off like kilter with the 14 because even though I have one league that I'm in like that, it still doesn't make me. I feel like the 10 and 12 starting off with that helps me with 14 just to understand positioning versus if I were going 14 down, I feel like I would overdraft. So it's just a weird method that I do. But like with 14, I'm definitely going to be getting in high gear with that. So probably at the end of this week. But speaking of fantasy, we're going to be starting with our quarterbacks. And, last year we had a bunch of guys, Jaden Daniels, for example, burst onto the scene and kind of finish in a, I don't know, maybe top 5, top 6, top 7 type range. I'm in fantasy last year, but kind of wanted to get P. Bush's idea or his reasoning for, basically quarterbacks that we think will outplay their ADP this year. And who'd you have on your mind?
Well, you said Jaden Daniels. I think that's a big one. He kind of fell in that rookie category, right? Where he's going in like the 11th, 12th round. When I'm speaking on all this stuff, I'm usually referring to a 10-man league situation, maybe a 12-man. To Sean's point, we're both in 14-team leagues, but I think everyone's more on the standard to maybe 12-man side, whatever you consider to be standard, depending on the platform you use. But one of the guys that stood out to me last year that obviously outperformed was like a Baker Mayfield, man, not a rookie.
Yeah.
Had kind of been, I think, in his second year in the new situation, and popped off. I think he finished QB4 or QB3. I mean, it was like ridiculous,
somewhere around there.
And we also got to credit that the majority of that was actually without Chris Godwin, right? Because when he got injured, so the fact that he was putting up those numbers with, Cade Otton, obviously we had Bucky Irving's season last year in the receiving end and rushing, Rashad White still being involved as well. Good old Mr. 1000 himself, and he got it on one of his last catches last year, Mr. Mike Evans. So, a guy I'm going to talk about is actually not a rookie, and that's a man I've loved talking about on this podcast over the 4 or 5 years at this point, and that's Justin Fields, man. I really think, we talked about him. I know we're going to get into a couple of the other quarterbacks later on in the segment, but right now, when I've been drafting, I think he is a little bit overdrafted. I think on ESPN his ADP is around like 120 in half-point PPR leagues. Obviously, a quarterback, depending on if it's super flex or you guys play a 2-quarterback league or whatever, he's probably going to be valued a lot higher, of course. But you can get him in like the 10th round. Now, you could approach this 2 different ways, right? You could go, one of the top 4 quarterbacks within the first 3 to 4 rounds. And when I say that, Jalen, Lamar, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts, right? Those are the big 4. Sadly, Patrick Mahomes has burned too many people the last 2 years, so he's fallen out of that category. Hey, he might be another guy that could outperform his ADP this year. But Justin Fields, man, you could go with one of those first 4 and draft this guy as a backup, i.e. more so a trade piece as we all know, there ends up being at least one or two teams that kind of vie for a quarterback towards midseason. You could go that route, or you could completely fade quarterback early on and rely on Justin Fields and maybe another solid QB2 towards the later ends, like a Dak
Mhm.
Prescott, Trevor Lawrence. Some people are in on again this year. I might actually switch my tune a little bit. I think he might have a little bit of a bounce back year just because of the coaching
Yeah.
situation. But that's also the reason why I'm picking Fields, man. He's got the rushing upside. He's in a completely new offense that I think is built around him, right? Obviously, they have Garrett Wilson and they have Brees Hall, but they gave him a $20 million a year contract, 2 years, $40 million. They're saying, hey, we want to give this kid a chance. He's still super young. We know the arm talent is there, and obviously we know the rushing talent is there. But people forget, man. I mean, he had the Steelers, I think, at 6-2 last year, or
He
five
did.
and one, or something like that, and they pulled him for Russell Wilson. Lord knows why. But
Yeah.
before that, his last year in Chicago, the man rushed for almost 1,150 yards. That is absolutely asinine, man, for a quarterback. The only other guys we've seen do that, Lamar, Michael Vick, right? It's very few companies. So this has always been a good fantasy quarterback. Fields has always been a good fantasy quarterback since he burst onto the scene. You can argue about how he is as just an NFL franchise quarterback. That's fine, but we're here talking about fantasy. And
Yeah.
Reese Hall is not a guy that takes away goal line touches, and I think that's the biggest thing because Fields isn't a bruiser like a Big Ben or a Jalen Hurts or even a Bo Nix to an extent, where you can really rely on him at the goal line. He's so quick and flashy that those little options on the outside, get a couple blockers out in front, pull the tackle. He's going to get at least. I would be willing to bet he's probably going to get at least 6 rushing touchdowns this year, and then he loves his top wideouts, man. That's what he's always done. He
Mhm.
did it with DJ Moore. We saw him even do it a little bit with Darnell Mooney early on before they got DJ Moore. Um, and then obviously he was not really feeding George Pickens all that much, I guess, last year, but that was
Mm.
more so potentially of a head case issue and just coaching,
Yeah, I
you
think
know,
so.
just a Pittsburgh situation. But I am all in on Garrett Wilson with him, and I think he'll only make Justin's life a lot easier. So, where he's at in ADP, I do think people will overdraft him just because of all
Yeah.
the hype about it, especially, and this is more so personally for me, I am in leagues with Chicagoans, man. They know what he is about, they know his talent, and they know his fantasy impact. So I do think that he might end up going earlier, kind of around that Bo Nix range, maybe 8th round, something like that. But if he falls to the 9th round and you have a stud quarterback, it might not be a bad idea to get Justin Fields on your roster as well. At that time, you're either getting another solid flex potential, right? Kind of on the cusp. Can I throw him in on
Mhm.
bye weeks, or you could get a stud quarterback that you could start, right? Or you could pair him up with maybe one of your other flex guys that you've drafted in the draft and upgrade at the flex position. So I just think his upside is all there. And I think he can outperform a couple of the other guys in his range, like a Baker, a Brock Purdy, a Justin Herbert, and a Bo Nix.
Yeah. I'm with you on Fields. I kind of figured that would be somebody's pick because he just is really just the rushing upside.
Yep.
And also, too, the commitment of the money. Plus, I mean, we just saw Garrett Wilson get his extension.
Yep.
He's one of those receivers where it's like it really doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. He's going to get open. And if he gets open, Justin Fields is going to find him because one thing he likes to do is key in on one receiver, a la DJ Moore. So that is a possibility. Like the upside of that relationship being like a almost like a stack situation, which
Yes.
I would stack it, but it could be a potential to be like, oh, like if I get him later, it's like, and I already got Garrett. It's like that would be maybe a reason why I get him because even though the quarterback I have, I drafted in front of him is better. Like maybe those two stacked together could be worth the point. So yeah, I'm all in on Justin Fields too. I think also too with that um I cannot remember the name of the I think he was the defensive coordinator or DB's
Aaron
coach or
Glenn.
yeah, Aaron Glenn. I think with him and Brees just rushing, I think they're gonna have a lot of opportunities to get rushing touchdowns. And I think
Yep.
Justin 6 might be a little bit too light. Like he might be in a situation where he's
Mm.
getting a lot of rushing touchdowns. So I do like his upside and his potential for sure. But I was thinking of a guy who has been up and down in fantasy. That's mainly been because of injury, and that's one Dak Prescott.
Mm.
I more than most people was very, 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 very happy that Dak got another weapon, a
Yes.
legitimate weapon in George Pickens. Uh, Head case or not, he's super, super talented. And I think we all know who the alpha dog is CD. I possibly think George is in a contract year. I'm not too sure. It's either 1 or 2 years he's got left.
Yeah.
Um, I
Not
think
sure
so.
off the
So I
top.
but I think he's in that range, and with that, I kind of think he's going to be on his best behavior because he wants to get to that second contract. Because I
True.
mean, honestly, last year with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, like he put up decent numbers, but I think he understands that hey, if I, you know, get my act together and I'm with Dak Prescott, I mean, I don't know how many years Dak Prescott's got left, but he's going to know that this is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. So I was factoring that in, and also, man, Dak when he's rolling, he like has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback. Like
Yep.
I think he had one year a couple years ago where he finished in like the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So to me,
He
that
threw for
shows
like
me,
5,000 yards. Yeah.
yeah. And Schottenheimer, I know he's got the pedigree with the last name. I'm not gonna sit here and say I think he's gonna be a great coach because I don't think he's had any type of experience where it would lend to that. But I do know since Dak has been there and he's been past his rookie or second year, he's been in pass happy offenses. So to
Mm.
me, I think there's going to be several opportunities for him to put up massive yards. The only thing that one could say is like, oh, is this a, kind of a risky play is injury, of course, and is his rushing ability still there? Like, I think he'll be able to get outside the pocket, but he's not going to be pulling off 20, 25-yard runs.
No.
So a lot of this is going to be with his arm. Uh, Maybe some could also argue like who's their running back, and maybe like the running game is not solid. He won't be able to make explosive plays down the field because the defense. I don't know too much about that. I probably, if I had to guess, is going to be running back by committee. But I'm
Yeah.
just excited to see him and George Pickens and Jake Ferguson too is one of the better tight ends. I think he's going to obviously eat with those two receivers on the field. So I'm very, very high on Dak. If I had a place where I think he could maybe finish this year is I think they had like his ADP was around like 12, 13, 14 range. He could definitely, I almost want to guarantee he can finish inside the top 10. And
Yeah.
on the highest of upside, he could maybe be top 7, top 8 with those two guys.
You
But
you could go risky, Sean, and you could go as like you go Fields and Dak if you just
yeah.
fade
Woo.
quarterback completely and take those two, and just you're taking a little bit of a gamble for two different reasons, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if one of those two hits or both of them hit, man, you are in a prime position. Especially, and to your point earlier, I liked what you said. You have two stackable options with Dak, and you have a guaranteed stack with Fields. If you can get
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, you could get all three if you really wanted to, actually. Now, I wouldn't recommend taking CD and George Pickens, but they could get
Yeah, I
enough
wouldn't either.
volume.
Yeah.
To your points, Javonte Williams is the lead back, and maybe he has a resurgence, but it's going to be a pass-heavy offense.
Yeah, and Schottenheimer feels like since because he was over McCarthy got fired, I feel like Schottenheimer's more of the hey, we're just going to continue to do things that are in the same vein. I don't feel like he's because he almost feels like oh I'm I know he's a Schottenheimer. He's like oh my god, I'm lucky to even have this job. I'm coaching the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry believes in me, so I feel like he's not going to do a lot of things to rock the boat. He's not going to bring in like oh we're going to go rushing and doing all this type of stuff because I feel like if they're really serious about rushing the ball, all due respect to Javonte Williams, they would have maybe got a guy in there who was a little bit more of a bell cow.
Yep.
So to me, I think they're just going to continue business as usual. It's the only downside of this is if Dak gets hurt because he has had a bunch of serious injuries. And I was reading, I think he'll be ready by training camp, but he had a little bit of a hamstring thing. So I don't know. Hopefully he stays healthy. And if he is, I think George Pickens is definitely going to be on his best behavior. And it might even open up CD even more so. Those are the guys I was looking at. Maybe one other guy I was kind of maybe like he can maybe outperform it. Is Jared Goff just because of all his weapons, but I don't know.
Yeah,
he just doesn't have the rushing
in a
upside.
14-team league. You should take him as QB2.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
in a deeper league, definitely.
He's just for me when I talk about trying to outperform the ADP, I always look at the rushing aspect, and I know that's kind of going beside my logic because I just talked about Dak, but. He's a little bit of a different category because he just is usually prolific. Because we always joke on this podcast about usually when they get down a lot, he's just chucking the ball for like this whole second half. So who cares about the player, like you said, about, hey, is this player going to be able to lead them to the playoffs? Nobody cares about that. We are only looking at if this person can put up stats. And Dak, love him or hate him, he puts up the freaking stats. So
he does. Garbage time or not, it's still points.
Yeah, for sure. So
we both benefited from fantasy matchups on the garbage time. It happens, man.
Yeah. It
And you know
happens
you
all the
love it
time.
when it does to you,
Hmm.
not
Yeah,
against you.
for sure. So, yeah, those are my guys I have for my
Yeah.
QB. That can maybe overperform it. But going into our next question, I kind of put this in here because I was thinking about P. Bush and this guy Caleb Williams.
Mm,
Both of these two guys came in last year and they were rookie quarterbacks, and one was a number one overall pick, and one I think was a top 10, top 11 pick. I'm not sure. Bo
he might have
was
been 12th overall or something like that.
12. So he's basically in the top 15, and let's just be honest, both of them had different expectations.
Very.
I'm going to be fully transparent with Bo Nix. I was not very high on him because I felt like, hey, he was at Auburn. He was kind of mid. He transferred to Oregon. I felt like he was a creation because let's face it, if you watch college football, most Oregon quarterbacks always put up great numbers. So I was just like, he's a product of that system. But he came in, I guess it does matter where you get drafted, and he got with Sean
Sure
Payton.
does.
So I kind of wanted to ask P. Bush what was his thoughts in terms of who do you think out of these two quarterbacks could be a league winner, Bo Nix or Caleb
Mm.
Williams?
I think if you're posing it as a league winner, I think you automatically have to lean Caleb just because of where you're
Hmm.
drafting him, right?
Yeah.
Like the value that you're like, you're taking Caleb in probably the 11th round or so, and he should be your quarterback too. Like if you took
Yeah.
Fields and Caleb in back-to-back rounds, I don't think that that's a bad quarterback draft. Like you're getting more of a pocket passer with some rushing upside versus a rushing quarterback with some passing upside, right? They kind of complement each other, and I'm very familiar with both of those guys. I'm also very familiar with Bo. He's my dynasty quarterback, right? I actually did
Yeah.
believe in him more than I believed in Penix. We'll see how that pans out this year because I am curious.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you might mention Michael Penix as an upside guy for
I
you.
had him on there. I had him on there. I
Yeah,
had him on there.
because I considered him too, but I think I got to see it a little bit more. We got a small sample size last year,
Hmm.
and very uncertain with the Kyle Pittses, right? Is Darnell Mooney, whatever, all that. So
Yeah.
Bo Nix, man. I mean, one thing I love about his situation, I love the Evan Ingram edition. I think that gives him
Yes, Matt.
such an outlet. I mean, we saw it outside of last year when he had injury issues. The year before that, man, he had like 140 targets and like 107 catches. I mean, with Trevor Lawrence. So he's dealt with young quarterbacks before, right? I think he's going to a situation that Bo Nix is a big beneficiary of the fact that he has the number one defense in the league and he is one of the best coaches in the last 20 years. But you can't just say, oh, he's not a great quarterback because he's got all that. No, that's to his benefit, man. Like he's going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
play better because he might not have as much pressure because the defense can stave off opponents, and he can trust Sean Payton. But he also, if you've seen clips, he gives it back to Sean Payton. He kind of keeps him in check a little bit, which we didn't see Russell do, and that obviously flamed out.
Yeah.
So I like Bo. I do think that I can't consider him a league winner because you're probably drafting him as your number one quarterback. Unless
Yeah.
if you're taking Bo Nix as your quarterback too, you're gonna have to take him in like the eighth, seventh, or eighth round. And I'm sorry, you shouldn't be taking your
I
maybe
think he's
maybe
going as a
Russell
QB1.
Fields, maybe
Yeah.
Fields just because of the rushing upside. But the thing with Bo compared to Caleb, they both rush for around the same amount. I think they
Yeah,
rush for
they did. I was looking that
500
up.
yards each. But
Hmm.
Sean, the difference is this is the thing. We don't have an idea of what Ben Johnson's going to do with Caleb Williams, right? He could be very much treat him like Goff, right? Where he was just a pure
Hmm.
pocket passer. But we know he's way more athletic than Goff. So I'm sure they will. But I do think they'll be more careful with Caleb Williams compared to Denver, Sean Payton almost treats Bo Nix at the goal line a little bit like Taysom Hill, which is funny to think
Yeah.
about. He does kind of use because he is a bigger guy. I mean, he's not small. He can
Yeah.
he can pack a punch. He had 4 rushing touchdowns, and he actually had a receiving touchdown last year too. Um, but he also threw double the amount of picks as Caleb, so slings it a little bit more. I'd say he's not as much of um, a very pointed passer compared to Caleb. And really, it just comes down to I believe in Ben Johnson a little bit more. I think he'll find Caleb's strengths. He has a lot more weapons. I love Cortland Sutton.
For sure.
RJ Harvey's getting way too much hype right now, in my opinion, and I do love the Dobbins edition for him. But I am
Yeah.
curious to see. Once again, Peyton loves those committees, man, from Sproles and Ingram back in the day to Kamara and Ingram and so on and so forth. He's going to approach it the same way. You do have to respect it as a defense, which could help Bo open up the offensive passing game a little bit more. But I just think Caleb is going to progress. Maybe not fully this year. I think it'll take till year 3. But if
Mhm.
you're talking about a league winner, I'm taking it as my second quarterback. If he happens to have a top 10 QB season, you're looking at an absolutely beautiful trade piece. And you could argue that that is also a potential league winner option when you can just trade up your team with guys that you have on
Mhm.
your bench. So I'm going to go with Caleb. Yeah, I know. I got the bias here. I do think he's not saying they're going to make the Super Bowl. All right. 9 or 10 wins,
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Keep progressing as a team. But I just think the draft value of Bo, he's a good player and he's great for fantasy. But you're betting on him being your quarterback one. And there are some other guys in that range that I think I'd have a little bit more certainty on.
Yeah. Mainly when I was looking through like guys to compare, Penix did come up. I just felt like Penix kind of didn't have a full season, and I mean he did look
Yeah.
good in the games that he did play, in, especially that Washington game. I feel like he was just dialing up darts to Drake London. But yeah, I kind of figured you would pick Caleb, and if Zoo was on here, I was maybe thinking he would pick Caleb too. So I just came in because I kind of do agree. I mean, it's kind of almost a situation where I don't see a situation where Caleb's not putting himself in a position to be really, really good this year on the field and in fantasy. So I was kind of thinking about like how could I make the case for Bo, and mainly the two or three things that came down to is, look, man, Sean Payton knows how to deal with quarterbacks. He just knows how to get the best out of each guy that he plays with. Now we do understand that he had Drew Brees and yada yada yada, but to your point, he had Taysom Hill, made him, basically a glorified tight end receiver guy out there, and made him decent to where it's like, hey, we can run an offense with him.
Yep.
And Drew Brees again, he's a Hall of Famer, so they didn't take too much work. But I mean, Drew Brees would tell you like, "Hey, Sean Payton is part of the reason why I'm in the Hall of Fame because he knew how to draw him up." And I think it was curious when the draft came around and he was like, "I'm singling or zeroing in on Bo Nix," and it's just like, it's like he's been in college forever. He's kind of he is what he is, but I think he saw something in him. And one thing that Bo was really really good at is being a tough guy, being a leader of a team.
Yep.
And two, it was surprising when I was looking up stats and stuff about him that he was third in the league of like 30 plus yard completions. So it
Yep.
kind of spoke to like, Cortland Sutton is a monster, but obviously he kind of has a really good deep ball. So,
Yep.
I don't want to think it's going to be like it's a rookie sensation and here comes a sophomore slump. Like that's definitely possible, but Evan Ingram's another massive piece. Like if he can get any type of synergy with him where, he's not just only the guy I'm looking at after Cortland Sutton is not open. Like, hey, I'm looking at him first. And depending on who feeds off of who, maybe Sutton's going to be a person who's going to benefit from that, or Evans going to benefit from that. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's a possibility with Sean Payton maybe trusting him more. Because I mean, Bo Nix it was a rookie last year, and I know he only has 1 year playing experience, but I mean he is 25. So and that
He's
probably
more
speaks to your
poised.
point too. Yeah, that
Yeah.
speaks to your point too of him giving it back to Sean Payton because he's not. I mean, he's halfway to 30, so I think he's like, I'm not a kid. So you
Right.
can't just talk to me any type of way, and that maybe is why Sean Payton liked him because he probably interviewed him. Was like, oh, this kid's gonna talk a little junk to me. So I think Bo Nix has a path to be really really good to where it would not shock me if he's in the top 10. And I think
Again.
if he would be a league winner, it would be maybe top five ish, top six. Like I can't go like thinking he's going to be up in a just Burrow, Hurts, uh, Allen range. That's hard for me to envision.
Yeah.
But like, if somewhere were to say, "Hey, do you think he's gonna be better than Patrick Mahomes?" It's like, yeah, I do, and I would
He
be
was
very
last
confident in
year.
saying that. Yeah, I would be very confident in saying it because
I'm
to your
pretty sure,
point,
Sean, he
they're
was
really
QB8. I'm pretty sure he's
yeah, he was in the
QB8.
top 10. Like looking at it now, I think he was in the top 10.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at fantasy pros, but yeah, he was QB8,
Yeah.
QB9, QB8. So yeah, so it's not like I'm looking at the list now. I would not be shocked if like I don't think he could be better than Lamar, Josh, Jaden, Joe, Jalen.
Sam
But after
Darnold.
that,
Like Sam
like
Darnold was in that list. Baker Mayfield was in that
yeah,
list. Right? Those are all guys
I
he could
mean
be above.
yeah, Kyler, Bo. I mean not Bo, but Baker. Yeah, Patrick. I think he could be easily in the top 6, 7. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that gets you to a point where it's a league winner, and if that's the case, then you're doing well. But yeah, it's just I came on thinking like, hey, let me see if I can make an argument for Bo. But
I think it
obviously,
is
if
an
I'm a betting
argument.
man,
To
no,
me,
it's definitely an argument. But
it comes down to
Caleb's
the
just
draft capital. That's I think what it's coming
yeah,
down to for me. You have to bet on Bo being your quarterback one because then you're overdrafting a QB2, right? Whereas if you're drafting Caleb in the 11th, that's a pretty solid value for an upside
Hmm.
backup quarterback for your fantasy team.
Well, speaking of QB2s,
Mm.
I thought about this. This is another one where I was shuffling a bunch of different names, but I was just wanting to stick with guys who are in the same draft class that kind of was on that, hey, they played a little bit or didn't play at all. And these two guys I'm talking about is Drake May and JJ McCarthy. And I kind of wanted to pose a question again to the guys. And right now it's just P. Bush. If you're just wherever you are in a draft and these two guys are on the board and you're like, hey, I kind of want to, I think I hit it out the park my first quarterback, but I kind of just want to back up that's maybe got a little bit more upside, and I think he could maybe pop if I do draft him here. Drake May, JJ McCarthy, who are you taking as your QB2?
I thought this was actually the best question, like for difficulty
Yeah.
of deciding between, because you're talking about Drake May, who's on an offense that is for sure, with Mike Vrabel at the helm, run heavy. And they
Hmm.
drafted a running back in the first round in Travion Henderson. They have
Yep.
Ramondre Stevenson there already. They did add Stephon Diggs, which I do think indicates that they want to give him some sort of help. And they also drafted Kyle Williams,
Yeah.
Stanford, if I remember correct. Or am I wrong there, where he's out of?
Kyle Williams, I think he's Stanford. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
Honestly,
blanking
I
on
don't
it,
know.
but that might be
Yeah.
a Io Manor though for the Titans. But
Yeah.
besides the point, obviously my boy Pop Douglas is there. They have some really good young wide receivers, and then they got your old friend in Mister 14 team league over here, Hunter Henry at tight end,
Yeah,
still old reliable, up there with
for
the Mike
sure.
Gesicki's of the world. Those
Hmm.
flyer tight ends. So he has some good options up there in New England, but I think the upside for him is, if you look at his numbers, they weren't sensational last year.
Hmm.
You have to take into account that he only started 12 games, right? So I think he only had like 2,600 passing yards or something like that. Maybe like 18 passing touchdowns, and he did throw a lot of picks. But look, he's a rookie. He's in a new situation. I do want to say that gives him a little downside compared to McCarthy, because McCarthy actually inadvertently got the same treatment that Mahomes did. I'm not saying I'm comparing talent, but Mahomes
Yeah.
sat out his entire first year. People forget that. He got to watch Alex
Hmm.
Smith play and learn, watching Andy Reid be a coach, see how he works with a veteran like Alex Smith, right? And just continue to absorb the offense. And he had the continuity of that same head coach when he took over. Well, JJ McCarthy's in the same exact situation. The only thing that scares me is that he had two surgeries. I didn't realize that he had
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
second knee surgery in November to repair. I don't know if it was something that went wrong in the first, or it was just something
Yeah.
further that they found and wanted to get it handled.
I think it was just cleanup, but yeah.
It might have been cleanup, and that's fine. If it, invasive or not, it's still a surgery, right? And it is
Yeah.
on something that is a crucial ligament for football players, let alone all athletes. So, um, on the McCarthy side, Kevin O'Connell is an unbelievable offensive head coach. I think he's the
Yeah.
best in the league. I love watching him coach. I love the schemes he puts together. You're talking about him having three top tier weapons in TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Anderson, pending trial today. I did not see a verdict come through quite yet, and then obviously Jetta. So he's got
Yeah.
options. They added Jordan Mason to complement Aaron Jones, so they'll have a quality, not standout, but quality running game to pair up with McCarthy at the helm. And we saw what he did for Sam Darnold. Now, Darnold
Unbelievable. Yeah.
didn't have pressure, right? And I think that's the thing that we have to consider. McCarthy has pressure. He got hurt. He was overdraft as a rookie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like him, how he played at Michigan, because they were a run first and defensive team, right? You could argue like Bo Nix actually deserved more credit coming out
Hmm.
of college, in my opinion, than JJ McCarthy did. And then
I
he gets
agree.
injured his first year and doesn't even see the field, let alone training camp and preseason, right? So now he's coming back in. He's taken over for a guy that literally just took them. How many wins did they have last year? 13.
Yeah. And basically had to fight for the
By a
division
guy
like on
that's been seeing
whatever week. Yeah.
ghosts a couple years ago. Like,
Yeah.
so if that guy can do it, well then, man, you're a top 10 drafted rookie. You got to do it, right? So
Yeah.
I could see this being a bumpy start at the beginning, and I think if it's your QB2, that's fine. You're not worried about it. You probably have Jalen or Lamar or whomever. So I'm fine with it, but that's purely because of the coach and the weapons. But I do think you're in for a rough 4 to 5 weeks, which you should also consider when drafting some Vikings receiving talent. Maybe not Jetta,
Yeah.
just because he
I'm
is
about
who
to
he
say Jetta's He's
Jetta's Jetta,
gonna be
but
automatic.
but Hawkinson, maybe I would be very concerned about
Hmm.
drafting Addison. One, because of the
Yeah.
trial and suspension, but also I feel like McCarthy's probably been working more with Jetta because of all this that's going on, and definitely Hawkinson. So I like McCarthy. I just think Drake May has experience. He's got the nerves out of his system. He's got a new head coach that is for sure bought into him and is trying to help him. I actually really like Stephon Diggs, and I mentioned that earlier, but I think he actually might mesh well. And coming off an injury, we'll see how it is. But I think his rushing upside is also huge. And I just don't see them risking McCarthy like that and giving him a lot of rushing plays unless he really has to. And so you're kind of completely negating that downs or that upside for McCarthy because of the injury. So I'm going to lean Drake May just on experience, getting the nerves
Mhm.
out. And I think he's just a little bit more versatile of a quarterback at this point.
One thing too about Drake May is he still has Josh McDaniels, and as much as I don't like
Yeah.
Josh McDaniels as a head coach, he knows New England. It's the reason why Vrabel kept him. I think McDaniels could get Drake May, put Drake May in a position to be pretty successful. Barring that Stephon comes back from his knee injury, which I think he'll be fine.
Yep.
So there is upside with that for sure. And I kind of, if you just put him in the vacuum, I think Drake May's a little bit more of a higher ceiling just because he's not just a stiff either. Like he's an athlete. Like I
No.
don't think he's a JJ athlete, but I mean, now with these knee surgeries that JJ had, I don't know. Maybe Drake's a little bit more of a bouncier, faster,
He's a little
quick
more like Herbert.
twitch athlete. Yeah, so he might be
Herbert's
that.
sneaky. Yeah. Drake May's
Yeah,
like in that category.
and Drake May's built like the modern day quarterback. Like he's not just a sinewy type of guy. Like I think he's built to be a New England quarterback. So I
Hmm.
think his upside is definitely there, but same thing I'm talking you was just talking about with the weapons and the head coach. People also forget too, like he was part of that Kirk Cousins, run, and not to say Kirk Cousins just exponentially got better, but he was really good under Kevin O'Connell. And I kind of feel like that combined with basically reviving Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell has officially went into the space of, hey, this is a quarterback whisperer. Like he needs to be talked about as like, hey, this guy knows offense. He knows how to game plan. He knows how to scheme
Yep.
whatever he's doing out there on the field to the strengths of his quarterback. So to me, I think about that and I'm like, my thoughts with JJ McCarthy coming into the draft was like, I know he's got skills and I know he's got arm talent, quote unquote. But I mean, I don't, outside of maybe 10 throws a year in Michigan, I never really saw it.
Right.
And then I started thinking to myself, I was like, well, part of that reason was you're dealing with Harbaugh. Like Harbaugh, no matter where he's ever been, Stanford, Michigan, 49ers, now with the chart, like, and it's now that when I was thinking about it too, was like, it's kind
Herbert.
of unfortunate because I've kind of looked at Herbert like I think you're a great quarterback and you have all the skill, but it feels like you're held back more because of just the nature of the offense. And I feel like maybe with McCarthy, that was what was going on because
Hmm.
I just could not see when he was, being talked about during the draft. Like everybody was just so high on him. I was just like, I don't see the high level throws. Like he makes one or two a game. He's not making a lot during the season. So I look at it now with, just I guess my bias is out the way, and I'm like, well, guess who just picked McCarthy? Kevin O'Connell did. So obviously, Kevin O'Connell thinks this is a dude that can figure it out and can run his offense. So I was thinking to myself, like, we know the weapons are going to be there. Addison, I think he'll play. We just don't know if he'll be suspended or whatnot. Jettas is Jettas, and obviously, if Addison can't play, they got guys I feel like behind him that are ready to step in and
Yeah.
assume
Naylor.
the workload that Addison had. So
Yep.
I kind of leaning towards JJ just because of the boom or bust aspect of if he hits, which there's a really good possibility if he's healthy again. Because like I said, I totally forgot he had the cleanup knee surgery. So I was like, that kind of is a little, especially he
Yeah.
had never
Sure.
played. Like, because more than likely you're going to get nicked up and bruised while you're playing. And I know
Yes.
you can't hit the quarterback, but that's going to happen. So that makes me a little nervous. But this is fully Kevin O'Connell and his offense, and thinking, oh, I think I can put this guy in explosive plays and the talent to back it up. Because I think if he does hit, JJ, it could be a situation definitely with JJ, like, oh, it's week 7 or 6, and it's like, God, I need a quarterback that can be explosive. He's a guy that'll be sitting on my bench. Assuming I draft well with the first quarterback, I could trade him for some, a receiver or a tight end or something to get some draft capital for, because I think he has that potential to do that. And rushing, we'll see. I still think the rushing upside is there because he was a really good athlete coming out. So just
I just don't
combining
see him
all of that.
risking it. I think that's the issue.
Not early, no. I don't think early. I think it's going to take a couple games to
Hmm.
maybe see him running around to where he's doing like pulling and maybe doing a couple of not zone reads, but just like quarterback scrambles or something like that, or draws. That probably won't come till middle of the season. It might be too late fantasy wise, but I just think this is Kevin O'Connell's time to shine, and I'm gonna give him complete faith in it, because
Yeah,
it says something that, I mean, nobody's saying Sam Darnold was just awful, because he did get drafted high, so everybody knew talent was there. But it takes, again, it goes back to situation. It takes a certain type of coach to
that's
get
fair.
that type of potential out of you. So listen, man, and I know Kurt towards Achilles, so that's whatever. But I mean, he's almost in a situation now. It looks like he's kind of falling off a cliff, and not part of it is because of age, and part of it is because of his situation with his injury. But also, some could argue like, well, you ain't with the quarterback whisperer anymore, which I think is
Mm.
Kevin O'Connell. So, I don't know. We'll see. I like I said, I'm gonna leave McCarthy. Like I said, I was gonna maybe put Penix in there too, like coming as a thing, but
I
because also quite as kept, his weapons are pretty nice too. he,
That's what I'm
he
saying.
just don't
I
have.
think
Yeah,
I do want to speak on him for a minute because
yeah, yeah,
that offense is looking real enticing, man. I mean, everyone knows
yeah,
Bijan. Bijan's a top 4 pick, pretty much guaranteed,
yeah,
unless someone wants to reach on Gibbs, which I would not blame them. I have run into
yeah.
that decision multiple times, and we'll talk about running backs, I'm sure, in the next couple of weeks. But obviously, Kyle Pitts, it's his breakout year. It's finally here. And, you got Drake London, you got Darnell Mooney, right? So you have one guaranteed great weapon. You have a very solid second wide receiver in Mooney. You have an unproven but talented tight end. If he can learn how to run a damn route, they might
Yeah.
actually do something. And then you have a stud RB1, if not overall in the league. So Pennant, man, he is in a perfect situation. I said this to you guys off the podcast a couple weeks ago, but I said that GM, when he was explaining to the owner right after the draft, taking Penix ahead of McCarthy, or was it ahead of? It might not have been ahead of McCarthy, but it was definitely ahead of Bo, right? Because
Yeah,
he
it
was
was
eighth
ahead of Bo.
overall, and
Yeah,
when they just gave Kirk 180 million, well, that guy's looking like a pretty smart dude right now. And whether or not it pans out, the fact that Kirk Cousins is no longer going to be the same player, in my opinion,
yeah, I agree.
since his injuries. Penix is in a perfect spot, and that man can sling it. I think Drake London has a great year. He might have the highest upside, actually, out of those three, if I were to take it, just because one, we've seen him play compared to
Mhm.
McCarthy, right? And he just looks more fluid throwing the football than Drake may, right? So I would probably pick him
Very
up.
decisive.
Very decisive. But at this point, I don't see people drafting in a 10-team league McCarthy or Penix. I think they're on waivers at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
Drake,
Drake, because when I was looking at the ADPs, Drake
potential.
was a little bit higher than
Yep.
McCarthy and Penix for sure.
Hmm.
And people were kind of talking about Drake as like, if everything hits, this is a guy you can get as a QB2 to start, and he has QB1 potential. And I think McCarthy, everybody's like wait and see, and with Penix, they not really wait and see, but they were just kind of like he's a highest of QB2. So, but again, when I watched that Washington game when they were on the road and he just was making fourth down throws and those that throwing that laser to Kyle Pitts in the end zone, I was just like, I don't know, man. Like, there's no rushing upside, so that maybe is what limits him.
Yep.
But just his ability to process, he's also another guy, 25 years old. So it's like he's kind of
He,
not scared of the moment. It's I don't
you know
know.
what he could do, Sean? He reminds me a little bit of he's not the same player, but he
Yeah,
could do like what Herbert did, where he just comes
mm,
in, he literally throws for like 4,800 yards and like 35 touchdowns, and he rushes a little bit here and there, but doesn't really. But he's still a top 5 fantasy quarterback, kind of a Dax similar, right? In
yeah,
years past, and potentially what we're predicting this year, right? That would be pretty much what the Falcons are going to ask of him, is to kind of be a stand in their quarterback,
yeah.
be poised, and make those huge throws. And In
because
college, in short stint, he's looking like he can do that.
it could get really spooky in terms of how high he could go, into to your point of like being a top 10, top 5 type quarterback, just because of Kyle Pitts, the revelation of him. If he can get anything out of Kyle Pitts, boy,
Absolutely.
like, you know, that could pretend to be well, because it's also too, you're thinking about the NFC South, and I know that's not their entire schedule, but it's like the defenses in there are pretty good. But I mean,
It's actually going to be
I
an
think he,
interesting division outside of the
yeah,
Saints.
hmm
I
I
know we'll
think
get
I think
into
he has
that,
a
but
yeah, I think he has the potential to maybe win some games they're not supposed to win. So,
mm,
but yeah, I was just thinking about a lot of guys that are in that QB2 range. It's just like, it depends on your draft strategy and how you attack the draft. Like I said, I've always been, and this is mainly because of 14 teams, I've always been super aggressive on quarterbacks. But
yeah,
every strategy can be brought to the table, and this is why on July 15th, I think, you can do a lot of workshopping and seeing what works and what doesn't. Because
sure
the one
can.
thing about fantasy is you got to be malleable, and you got to be able to move your strategy if you want to win every year.
Yeah,
So, like I said, this is the beginning of our series. We started with quarterbacks. I think next week we're going to get into the skill positions a little bit, talk
yeah,
about some of our risers and followers with that. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Tyson Talks _, YouTube, Quattro Knows, Tyson Talks _ also on TikTok. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify. Give us a thumbs up, 5 stars, whichever one is with Apple, Spotify, that allows you to do that to get us in the algorithms. And for me, Zoo, and Peebush, we are out.